Welcome to the enchanting world of the Never Cross a Witch Bitch podcast. Prepare to be captivated as we embark on a thrilling journey into the realm of spirituality with our remarkable team of a distinctive energy mixture. Leading the way is Mitch Garlington, a gifted gay male witch, touring stage medium, and psychic tarot card reader. With a background in the competitive corporate world and experience as a Cher impersonator, Mitch brings a fresh and unique perspective to our discussions. Next, we have Lucy Locke, a former fundamentalist Christian missionary turned sex shop manager turned professional dog groomer turned psychic medium, trance channeler, and tarot card reader. Her incredible transformation into the spiritual world is truly inspiring. And last, but certainly not least, we have Carly Batten, a second-generation practicing pagan, intuitive oracle card reader, and spiritual mother to many. Carly brings a grounded approach and simple understanding to the complexities of spiritual living. Together, we form an unstoppable podcast as we delve into all things spiritual and the journey of life. Our mission is crystal clear: to spread the message that spirit embraces all and that each of us is on a spiritual path, whether we realize it or not. So buckle up and get ready for an exhilarating adventure with the Never Cross a Witch Bitch podcast. Please note that all ideas discussed and presented in this podcast are the personal opinions of the individual podcasters and do not necessarily reflect the views of each other or the viewers. Hi, everyone. This is Lucy and Mitch and Carly with Never Cross a Witch Bitch. This is episode 10.
10. It's
That's
10.
crazy. That's awesome.
Decade podcast.
Exactly. That's awesome. Well, I want to welcome everyone. If you don't know who we are, we're Never Cross a Witch Bitch, and I'm Lucy Locke. And we'll introduce...
And I'm Mitch.
And I'm Carly.
Whirlwind. We got it this morning, didn't we, Carly?
Whirlwind, yeah.
I felt a bit nauseous after that. I just got out of bed. I was still in my pajamas and like drooling down the side of my face. And I was like, I think Carly's been up since 4 a.m. Done the ponies, 6 loads of washing.
Carly's just Carly's brain. Just bear with. I'm heading towards middle age, and I just like my brain went. So Lucy has verbal diarrhea. My brain has diarrhea on its own tangent, and then unfortunately you guys get it where I suddenly go, what are we talking about? I don't really.
Well, she's in the middle of a field at 8 o'clock in the morning. So that's, yeah.
When I see it coming through, I think, right, hold on to something, and then I'll listen to this just to stay. So I don't go, whoa. Where's my staff when you need it? Bush.
Exactly. Intense.
Well, is that to batter me over the head with, or to anchor yourself with?
Just to anchor myself, because I'm like, what the fuck's this all about?
Yeah, don't have empathy for Carly. We're going to talk about empathy today. Okay, I had empathy. I felt it deep in my bones of her walking in this field at 8 a.m. already doing loads of stuff, and I felt a bit nauseous sitting in my chair drinking my tea with my pajamas still on. So yeah, there we go.
Cuddling the dogs in the warm.
Exactly. Yeah, today we're going to talk about empathy, we thought, right?
Definitely. It's an interesting subject matter.
Yeah, people might be like, empathy, what does that have to do with being a witch or being in the spiritual life? It has everything to have to be in a witch or be in the spiritual life. Empathy is a big one. So who wants to start us off?
I'll go into it if you want. It's like I've got a few things to say about empathy. So empathy, for me, it has a really positive sort of spin, but it also has a little bit of a negative. It feels very much to me like a gifting and also a curse in a sense and in a way, because when I do readings, you have to have, or spirit bring through such empathy for situations, connections and everything else. But I do also find that sometimes people latch on to the empathy and it can be a bit negative, or it can be twisted a little bit inward. So it's a really interesting subject matter. I always remember one of my mentors actually said you shouldn't have empathy for your clients, and I think to do the work we do, to feel energy on such a deep level, you have to have empathy. Because if you haven't got empathy, how can you feel the depths of what's going on and what's happening, you know?
Exactly. Yeah.
So I think you need to have both. And I was, sorry. Go on, Will.
No, I was going to say, I think it's a case, something I was picking up on. It's a case of, I think as a reader, remembering how I feel, I think it's having that empathy, but not feeling the emotions, but not taking the emotions on board. I think that's the key to it, is have the empathy, but not being affected by those emotions to take them on board. So feeling them going, you know. So yeah, go and carry on, Mitch. Sorry, I'm jumping in.
That's cool. That's cool. But it is hard because obviously, like, you know, when we're sensitives, to do the work that Spirit entrusts us to do, you do have those extra sensory issues. I always remember at school, I used to get bullied terrible, and I would have empathy for the bullies. And I was like, why am I feeling sorry for the bully? But that used to be a common theme because I could feel not necessarily just the reason they were bullying me, but I could understand or feel into the deeper stuff, the unhealed stuff, or the actual mechanics of what was really going on. Because often with bullying, you might be the target, but there's something so much deeper at play. And I used to feel that all the bloody time. So even though I would be picked on or mentally tortured or sometimes physically tortured, I'd end up having empathy and feel sorry for the abuser. And I was thinking, how stupid is that? But it was a common theme.
Can I stop you there? Can I stop you there? This goes into what I have to say.
Okay.
Empathy and sympathy are two polar opposite things. Okay, so empathy is feeling the feelings of someone. So you can have empathy and feel the feels of someone, but you're not necessarily a kind person or a nice person. So there are people that are actually quite cruel that are empathetic. And that's how they con. That's how they figure you out. Does that make sense? To play you. So empathy is purely just feeling the feelings of someone. It's what you do with it. Sympathy, you're not feeling the feelings of someone. You're actually feeling sorry for that person. So you can have sympathy. There's good sympathy. Like, I don't mean like pity. Pity and sympathy are the same thing, but like you could have someone that maybe had someone that just passed away in their family. And you're not necessarily feeling that grief for them. That would be empathy. But you feel sorry for them that they're going through such a horrible experience. So that's sympathy. Then
that's interesting. Because I kind of feel they're interwoven.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Oh,
There's so
I
much
disagree
you
with
can.
that.
Do you? Well, that would I would think psychology might disagree with you, Mitch.
Well, it might, but I feel really strongly that they're interwoven. But we'll go on.
You know what? You can feel both at the same time, but they're two separate entities. Does that make sense? So that's what I mean. Is they're two different things. You can feel complex emotions where you're feeling all kinds of stuff. So you can have empathy for someone and feel really angry at the same time at them. And then you could also have feeling sorry for them, but hating them at the same time. Like that's complex emotion. So yes, sympathy and empathy can go together, but they are two different things.
Yeah, two different energies. But when I say interwoven, I feel that they almost overlap each other or can.
They can, and that's where people get confused by them. Yeah. And then when you're getting then out of that, a lot of people get confused too, empathy with being nice. And empathy and nice don't go together either, necessarily. Empathy, so kindness is different than nice, too. So you got kindness, which I feel spirit is kind and not always nice. So kindness is doing the best thing for yourself and that person, and it might not be very nice. Does that make sense? Okay. But it might be the best thing for that person. That can be kindness. The two are not the same. So kindness and empathy go hand in hand. So you might have empathy for someone, but the kindest thing. So you might have empathy for, I'm going to go deep. Trigger. You might have empathy for your dog, but you know it's come to the end. So what's the kindest thing to do for that dog? It's not nice.
Yeah. Exactly.
right? Is that you send them over, you allow them to go over to the other side. So do you see what I mean by nice and kindness? That they're two separate things, but they're meant to be for the kindness is meant to be for the best for that person. So, like someone
Yeah.
might be in an abusive situation, the kindest thing would be to remove them from the abusive situation, which might cause torment of law. You know what I'm saying? But the kind, like, so, yeah. So for me, and then we'll talk about empathy has to have boundaries, and
Mm.
boundaries are kindness. They're not always nice, but they're kindness. They protect both yourself and the other person.
Mm.
Empathy without boundaries can turn into really bad stuff like codependency. And a lot of people that have empathy have unhealed empathy, and empathy actually can come from trauma. So let's say you're raised in a situation that's very chaotic, abusive, right? You learn to figure out people's emotions very, very quickly and feels people's emotions so that you don't get hurt. You can read a room. Does that make sense? You can figure out what's going on. But you're not taught boundaries because a lot of times your own boundaries have been taken away. So you have this empathy, but you have to learn. An important part of maturing is the boundaries. And so a lot of people have empathy for people, but they don't have empathy for self. And that's where it needs to start first. When you have empathy for yourself and kindness for yourself and boundaries for yourself, the empathy becomes a lot clearer and a lot easier with the people around you and a lot safer. That's my little put out there for now. What do you,
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, it does make sense. What's your take on it, Carly?
I mean, my take on it, from personal experience, is a lot of me. I mean, obviously, there's different categories to it because obviously people feel that they're empathic when they pick up on energy, feelings. That's another part of the empathy, isn't it?
and that is what empathy
And
is. And yeah, and it can
yeah,
turn into psychic stuff too. Does that make sense?
yeah,
Yeah, very much so.
yeah, yeah. So a lot of my dealings with it is personally when I've been either reading or you walk into a room and you go, oh, hang on a minute, something's a bit off. I've always been very aware of picking up other people's crap. If you know, being empathic is, especially when funny enough, actually, when I was talking to this someone the other day, but when we first started out on the Bardware with the Bardware stall, that was even though I was walking my own path pre going out with the stall, I hadn't actually been out in the environment and with the tribe very much. So I hadn't been out with people that were either on the same, on the same page as me, basically.
Okay.
So so I found that sometimes going in to situations like that, because it was very, there was a lot of people that are high vibrational, I'd come home with a headache. I would come home with sort of like side migraines, and it doesn't happen anymore because I can now sort of shine my light, my Teletubby belly, we were talking about earlier on. So I can protect myself from, I put boundaries, I can protect myself from picking up. Or if I feel something, I go, that's not mine. I'm not taking it with me. And I leave it behind. Unless, of course, it's somebody who needs help and's come to me and I feel as though I can let their feelings into my empathic space, if you want to, or my boundaries, let them over my boundaries, then I will allow that door to open. But apart from that, most of the time I'm like, oh, no, that's yours, you keep it, that type of thing. So and seeing other people, just general everyday life. I had a friend of mine who's very in a nice way, she's very sensitive. She said she's very sensitive. She's got an immune deficiency with her body, so she's quite a sensitive little soul anyway. And she honestly said to me, she rang me one day, I'm struggling at going into Aldi's or Lidl's, Blue Shop we call it. And she said, it's too busy, it's too buzzy. And I said to her, just sit in the car and think about your Teletubby belly. Now, a lot of people do things differently. So a lot of people, say about putting up boundaries or being in a bubble or creating that protection. And I find like hiding in a cloak or going in a sphere, because I don't like being claustrophobic. So guys, if I ever die, don't bury me. It's I don't like the feeling of having things around me, or that feeling of a test tube. So I go the other way. So I imagine, Teletubby belly, Lala and Poe, and they shine a light, and it goes out all the way around me, and it can either be in and really bright, which means it's like high intensity, quite concentrated protection, or it can go further out and be like dim white light, or a yellow light, which is really passive, and you can bring it in and take it out as much as you want. And I said to her, I said, remember your Teletubby belly, just to keep people at bay, other people's energies at bay, looking after herself. And she took a deep breath and sorted out a Teletubby belly, and off she went. So my sort of take on sort of the empathic side of things is I've learned to control it. I've learned to set the boundaries over practice, and obviously listening to how other people do it as well. But more through funny enough, through intuition, through what felt right for me. So I've never had a mentor apart from obviously my upbringing. But Mitch, I know you've had a mentor and you sort of had somebody to help you along the way. Apart from listening to you guys and then suddenly going, oh, actually, I'm doing it my own way, or I'm doing it another way. I've never been mentored, so I've created my own boundaries. I've learnt not to pick up other people's stuff. If I'm reading, I've picked up people's emotions. I've sat there and cried when I've turned over a card and suddenly gone, I get that jump in the stomach and I feel very teary if there's something really emotional. If they're really emotional about something and there's a really delicate subject, I will feel it and I'll get a lump in my throat and I'll start to get upset, and I will have to take a breath and I'll go, okay, I've acknowledged that. Thank you very much. Put that, but that's the person. But it's a thing, that I get fed that as an empathic side of things, so that I understand who I'm reading for and what the emotional attachment is, but I don't take it with me.
But are we calling that sensitivity then? So is it just empathy, sensitivity?
Possibly.
Is that almost a reaction to the empathy then? Is that what we're sort of saying a little bit?
Or the other way round?
I don't know.
Are you sensitive, which then makes you empathic?
Or does it merge into two? This is what I meant with them being interwoven almost.
Were you talking sensitivity or sympathy?
Well, they're two energy lines, aren't they?
Sympathy is feeling sorry for someone, and lots, that could take different degrees of being high energy to low energy, depending on how you're sympathizing with the person. You could be pitying them and feeling higher than them, or you could be alongside feeling, but you're not feeling their emotions, if that makes sense. Empathy is feeling, but you can have sympathy and empathy because you're feeling that person's emotions and you go, whoa, I really feel bad for you. Does that make sense? And that turns into sympathy.
Sympathetic. Then you're sympathetic because you're open as an empath to the feelings, and you see it from it's like the terminology. I hate terminology, but it's like the whole thing of open, looking at the story from the other side. So I think if you're empathic, you tend to look at the bigger picture. You tend to look at that. It's slightly sometimes in a diagnostics way, you will, because you're empathic and there's something more behind it, you will then naturally look at something bigger. So that horrible, I was bullied at school, so I know where you're coming from, Mitch, with that whole thing. So at the time, I think I was obviously then very hurt, but I then look at it and think, actually, there's more going on. Why is this happening? What's going on with this lad? Is there something else behind it? I think it makes you, being empathic makes you look at there's more to it, rather than just going, he's an arsehole, which, he probably is an arsehole, but there's more to it. isn't there?
Yeah,
so I think
I get what you're saying, and this is where I struggled because I was one of those, and I can still be like that, where I go, the person's hurt me, okay, and I'm hurt, but then I don't acknowledge my hurt. I go right into empathy of, well, why did they do that? They're feeling like this and that and this and that. That's not healthy. It's not healthy. When someone hurts you, healthy is righteous anger, that you feel you have empathy for yourself, where you go, I'm fucking feeling this right now. And that's not on, right? And then that's that boundary of you shouldn't have done this to me. Empathy for that person could come later, but in that moment, it should be the the healthy feeling would be, I'm hurt, and acknowledging your own feelings, having empathy for yourself and kindness for yourself of going, that's not on, and standing up to yourself. Doesn't mean you have to call him an asshole or this or that. You can actually be you can be nice, but you're also being firm of not on. You've crossed a boundary, you've hurt me, and that's empathy for self. Nothing can come out, nothing healthy can come out until you start working, being in yourself. Does that make sense? And then it might be that that pain goes away, and then empathy comes if you go, yeah, that he's had, I can feel that he's got this and that going on. Or you can have sympathy where you go, he's come from a really shit situation and I feel sorry for him. But I think for me, where a lot of my autoimmune came from, all that was never recognizing or allowing myself to have my true emotion in the moment. It was always about the empathy. So I was always giving out, giving out, giving out. And that's actually really unhealthy. And that you can have righteous anger, anger that is right in the moment, right, and is about, and that you can stand up, because kindness and nice gets you hurt more. And I'm not saying be mean, but you can be kind by having firm boundaries or empathy for yourself. And a lot of people think it's really super spiritual to be really empathic that way, but actually you're really draining yourself and you're hurting yourself and you're depleting yourself. You can be empathic, but you first have to be empathic towards yourself, that love of self, that standing firm. And then it's a healthy, non-draining empathy. And am I there yet? No. But I'm learning. Does that make sense? And I'm catching myself in it. But boy, oh boy, being young, it was drilled into me by different people in my life that, yeah, the bully bullied you, you be nice to that bully. You be, and I'm not saying be mean to him, not be mean to, I'm not saying be mean, but then it was like I wasn't allowed to have my feelings. I had to give kindness and niceness over to this person that really hurt me. And that was the righteous thing to do. That was the spiritual thing to do. That was the right and that's not the way it is at all. You're allowed to have, you're not a doormat.
Yeah, absolutely. I just find like nowadays I will distance myself very quickly from things if it doesn't sit well. So for instance, if somebody new is on the scene or something and they want me as a best friend, I'm like straight away the empathy is like, no, not going there, because I can feel there's an agenda, there's something they want. And they might be really lovely and come in from might seem all fluffy on the surface, but I just feel, no, my heckles can feel.
I call them energetic vampires. They don't realize they're that way, but and they'll suck you dry. Does that make sense? Yeah. And then an empathic person without boundaries will think the right thing to do is to feed them.
Yeah. Whereas I'm like,
go and help them.
No, not going there, sort of thing. But I get that a lot, or if you've made someone feel really good through spirit, through the reading, I find that then sometimes they want you as like their personal, I don't know, little pocket rocket thing, and they want to message you sort of 24 hours a day. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, no, fuck off, sort of thing. The service is done, the transaction is over. And I don't mean that to sound negative or disrespectful, but again, like Lucy says, it's having enough respect for yourself first and saying, we've now crossed a line that I'm not comfortable with.
But you get that in everyday. You get that.
Oh,
You
you
get
get
that a
it in
lot.
all
And
walks of life.
yeah,
Yes, Carly. Yes.
everyday life. I mean, I've just fun enough had a conversation this morning in my Muggles job regarding. I have to be very careful where I'm going with this, just in case somebody I know locally is listening. But well, be quite good, wouldn't it? But there's a group of people that has I've always been very much oh, the world is so lovely, love and light, as Lucy likes to say. Everybody's lovely, rose tinted goggles, oh, da da da, blah blah blah. And Mrs. Audrey Lady, who we speak about, every now and again, she said to me once, she said that there was a specific person, and she said she was very wise in her years, and she said, if I wasn't paying that person, she wouldn't be here. And I was like, oh, really? She seems so nice and lovely and blah, blah, blah. No, if I wasn't paying that person, she wouldn't be here. She said, you and the other lady are here because you care and you want to look after me. And I try paying you for doing an extra hour and you don't want money, or you know what I mean, you should call me up and say I've fallen off the chair and I go and pick her up. And I was like, oh, no, no, no. But since then, that comment opened my eyes, and I was like, all right, okay, maybe I do see the world through rose tinted glasses and everybody's lovely. But that's me spreading my empathy, being empathic, going, everybody have a bit of me. I'm so lovely. And it made me think. And ever since I've gone, right, okay, and pulled back, and Mrs. Audley may look at it, I actually then saw that person for a different light. And I actually thought, no, you're actually not particularly very nice. And then along with that person comes drama. And the group of people that are with her have drama. And you're just like, yeah, I don't want to be involved in that anymore. And you step away because they don't, you're looking after yourself, because actually that drama does not, like you, Mitch, does not fit well with me. And I don't want to know. I don't want to know. And I've heard things since, and I just think, well, you're just a cow, aren't you? Really, not particularly a very nice person. And I'm thinking, I really don't want to be involved in that. And I just step away. I don't want to have anything to do with it. But that's everyday life. Say, and sometimes it'd be somebody I've known her years. Sometimes it could be someone who you think and then you sit there and go, yeah, no. But funny enough, when I look back, and it might make a few people think, but when you actually look back on certain people, you think of your connection with them, it didn't actually click. It's not like me and Em, we clicked. It's like we've known each other for years. And yeah, these people I thought were friends, but when you think about it, it's like, yeah, no, definitely did not click. But it's made me pull back and step away, like you, going, yeah, no, you're all right, you're good, you can keep all that crap, all that drama, all that foo-foo, all that, he said, she said over the garden fence, and all wow, and all that. Nah, keep all that shit.
Well, for me, having boundaries and learning to put up boundaries has given me great peace. Great peace. But it's also made my space lonely.
I was going to say it's quite a lonely journey, isn't it, at times?
It is. But in my life, I'd rather be alone and have a few people that I really trust and know have got my back than be surrounded by loads of people that I am dealing with loads of energy that just overwhelms me. For me, I was very open. I was the love and light. You gotta love everyone. You've gotta, that's spirit's job. That's actually not my job. And I'm all right standing in that, saying it's not my job. In the moment, if spirit gives me empathy for that person, and I now have that control of the empathy, if that makes sense, before it was just like, and I'll be honest, my empathy was quite selfish because I felt if I loved everyone, they're going to love me back.
Okay.
Right? And I'm going to get that love. And that wasn't a conscious thought. That's just how I was because of situations that happened in my life where I didn't feel cared for, didn't feel loved. That as a child, that was like kind of a survival mechanism. If I love everyone around me and show them love and be the best possible Lucy I can be, they're going to love me back.
Love you,
You
and you
find
can
a
fit in
lot of
then, can't you?
adults are still like that. And a lot of people are in the
Mm.
spiritual world are very much like that. They say they're working for spirit, but I'm going to be really, this is kindness, okay? It's not nice, but this is kindness. And this will free people if they really look at the shadow side of it. They say they're working for spirit, and I have to sometimes look at this in myself too. Or are they working to get love and to get acknowledgement and to get
Mm.
recognition and to take that child that didn't get that and make that child feel good with this outside stuff coming in? Now, it doesn't mean that that you're a wrong person. It's just we can slip into that, and then that's where it becomes unhealthy, and that's where burnout happens too.
Yeah, you see that
And you
with a
see
lot
a
of heat.
lot of people, healers, getting burnout.
Mm.
Mm.
Go for it, Mitch.
Mm.
No, I was just going to say, like, I see that a lot with healers, where they give, 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 and some of it's avoidance, like you say, of the real um, wounds that haven't been maybe healed within.
Mm.
So it's
Hmm.
easier to sort of to give to other people than to invest in self, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
But
Mm.
like you say, Lucy, when you let go of that need to be loved, I mean, I always hope that my readings inspire and offer something for people, but it's not about me. I'm just literally holding space for spirit. And I think when you get to that stage, that's where true spirit magic happens. And it's a really powerful thing. But yeah, I do find a lot of people, when you read for them, they almost they slip into that cycle of it being not from spirit anymore, but it's like, oh,
Hmm.
Mitch can do me, Mitch can do this, and it's like, no, Mitch is not going to do this, and that's when I have to disconnect and cut people off, and that's not nice to do because we do have the empathy and we can feel things. I sort of feel quite guilty at times of, oh God, is this person going to be okay if I cut them off? But also my higher self knows they've crossed a boundary and you're not being respected anymore.
Mm.
Well, that
Mm.
I
And
know, I
then
know Carly hate. Oh, go ahead, Carly. Yeah.
I was going to say, and then obviously, if you cut them, do your cord cutting, that actually then falls into kindness because it's better for them to cut, for you to cut the
And you.
cords and let
Yeah.
them go and grow rather than hanging on. So that
Yeah.
it falls. Great example. That's a great example of being kind, but
Yeah.
not necessarily in their eyes. We've got to remember it be in their eyes, the recipient's eyes. You're not being nice, but
Mm.
Yeah.
actually you're being kind. So that's also another thing. It's the receiving of that information again, isn't it? You're going to
My
say,
head can't
Lucy, I
stop
don't like
going, yes, yes, yes.
this terminology.
I mean, like, I love, see, me and Carly are polar opposites in this. I love terminology. Terminology helped me heal because I didn't know what was going on inside of me. And it wasn't until people started to define things and I go, that's a real thing. And I could stand on it. Does that make sense? That terminology actually
Mm,
became
It
a
gave
real
you
saving
identity
grace.
almost, didn't it?
Hmm.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
healing
I
because it was
understand
like,
that.
oh, I know now what's going on. I was talking to Mitch about this the other day when he said clients, and I've had it too, but client like Mitch is like full time tarot healer. Does that make sense? It's his job 24/7, not 24/7, probably about 6 to 8 hours a day, 5 days a week kind of thing. Sometimes six, sometimes seven, depending on what he's doing. But he's full time into it. And the thing with it is Mitch can shed. And people don't like the idea of Mitch or anyone shedding their stuff. They like that empathy, right? But they're not realizing where the empathy is coming from. Mitch is an open vessel. I am an open vessel. Carly is an open vessel in those moments of reading or wherever we are with this person. We're an open vessel to hear from spirit, to speak into their lives. And it's called transference. And it happens in every layer of life, not just in healing. It's a counseling psychology term which makes sense to me totally. So transference is taking that person. So let's say Mitch is doing a read for me, right? And he can
Mm.
feel that spirit really cares for me. Well, spirit does care for everyone, but there's a specific thing that maybe spirit is saying into my life, and it's really potent for me, right?
Mm,
And all of a sudden, I start to because that's felt so good coming from Mitch, onto Mitch. And Mitch, I begin to think Mitch is feeling special about me. Mitch is the one that feels special about me. And that's called transference. You're taking that what's not real and you're putting it onto that person when actually it's your spirit. It happens in counseling all the time. It happens when you're younger. Like we were talking about this the other day. I don't know how many school teachers, men's school teachers, I had crushes on. Even sometimes women, it wouldn't be sexually, but you just feel that like they would be kind to me or nice to me. Does that make sense? And I didn't feel very lovable. I didn't feel very good, and I would get feelings for them. And for some of the men, even at a younger age, it would turn sexual. And you find that a lot with people where it's called transference. So like a nurse, I had a friend that was a nurse. I was telling Mitch this day. I don't think she's listening, so I could tell the story. And I don't even remember her name. It was so long ago. But I had an acquaintance, I'll say, that was a nurse, and she was telling us in this situation that she got empathy, sympathy, boundaries all mixed up, transference all mixed up when she was a younger nurse. And she had a couple of patients that she slept with while she was a nurse. Like these were at the hospital. To make them feel better. To make them feel better about themselves. And this happens a lot, not just in nursing or anything like that, or in jobs. This just happens in day-to-day life. I think about my life and how many times I got into situations where I'm like, I don't really want to be with that person, if I really think about it. But I've done things that are against my boundaries just to make that person feel better about themselves, or like the empathy's gotten all mixed up, everything. And that's what I mean by unhealed empathy, unhealed boundaries, unhealed. It can get very messy very quickly. And so with boundaries, and Carla, you're really good at energetic boundaries of putting that shield up inside you. Like when I meet Mitch in person, right? It's like almost this impenetrable. He's very kind to me. He's very lovely to me. And we get this, and I'm beyond that with him now. But when I first met him for reads, you could feel this kindness and love coming from him. But there was this like energetic.
There's a boundary. Yeah. Definitely. Especially when you're setting up to work, when you're starting your day, that's why I'm always really careful. Like obviously you come around and
that's
see
why I thought he smoked dope.
Stoned as a coot.
He doesn't. I'm going to say that again. He doesn't.
No, he doesn't.
But it doesn't matter if he did.
But you can actually see it. You can see it with you, and that's why I'm always like, you come around and bless you. You always go around at your fairs and say hello to everybody, but I can see you with your. I don't want to pick it, and which is why I'm really conscious when you come over and talk to me and you sort of, we have a hug. I'm like, no, hold all my shit in because you don't need my shit.
But the reason
you're going off and reading.
Yeah, the reason I do that is because when I was first starting out, I had a really bad experience where I didn't put that protection up. I didn't create the safe space, and I was drained and burnt out. I did this fair and I did about 12 readings back to back, and then I was burnt out for like about a month afterwards, and I felt really ill, and it's because I hadn't put protection in place, or I hadn't set my space up. And to everybody, I had about a dozen hooks in me everywhere from different people that had just taken so much. And I just thought, oh my God. And I actually went to my teacher at the time, my mentor, and I said, this experience has happened. Where have I gone wrong? And she kicked my ass, and she was like, Mitch, you need to go back to basics. You didn't put the basic steps in, because I was, like Lucy said earlier, at that point in time, I was just on the scene, just starting out, and I wanted everybody to feel great. I wanted everybody to feel special, because I can feel the power, the love that spirit can bring forward. I wanted everybody else to feel that, and it was sacrificial. It was almost like I was sacrificing my body over for slaughter. And yeah, she, my mentor really kicked my ass, and she was quite an old school style teacher. And, I didn't like it in the moment. And I thought, oh, my God, this makes me feel really shit. But she needed to kick my ass on that particular occasion, because I dropped the ball. I'd fucked up, basically, And it's not that.
And that was kindness on her part. It might have not come across as kindness, but she was doing the kindest thing for you by saying, you don't have your boundaries up.
Yeah, definitely. And for about a month I was sulking and I didn't like it, but I've come to realize now that that was one of the best gifts that she could have given me, because I did drop the ball. And since then, it's made my work so much more disciplined, so that I don't have burnouts. I don't ever feel really run down like that again, because you should always come away from your spirit work feeling empowered, feeling buzzed. You might feel tired, but like in a good way.
I mean, I know. I mean, when we've done Mitch's fairs, and me and Em have obviously gone home. We've gone home in the car, driven all the way back to where we live, and we'll feel absolutely exhausted, but buzzing in a nice way. I mean, I've got to the point now where I don't have the headaches. I don't bring the crap home with me because I've got those boundaries, and I can switch it on and off now like a light, like a light switch. But that's practice, and that's keeping that energy up. And I do also, in all fairness, when I first started the fairs with that whole, being empathic, dragging everything, giving everything out, everybody have a piece of me. You realize that everybody doesn't have to have a piece of me, and you don't have to take everybody's crap home with you. But it's a nice feeling when you get that nice balance, and you still, I know I still, like you say, Mitch, drop the ball. I know I still forget every now and again, but most of the time it's there. But that feeling of that buzz and enlightenment, when you get so tired, start getting stupid, and you start doing really silly things and making really bad jokes. I think we drove home once making names out of number plates. I mean, it was the most hysterical drive home from Mitch's fair ever, but we were so tired and so buzzed, we were yagging away, and then it was like it was like being in a car with 5 people who had ADHD, but there's only 2 of us. We were chatting away and we were doing this, and there was like, oh, there's a number plate. Oh, let's make a name out of WHA. And it was, but it's really funny, isn't it? Because it's a lovely feeling, but you're knackered all at the same time. But it's nice to get to that.
Yeah. I love doing readings because you're tired, but I feel buzzed. One of the girls at your fairs came to me and she's like, you're like high as a kite after your reads, and I am, because I can feel how much spirit loves someone. Does that make sense? But it's not me. Because I'll tell you, Lucy is a normal Lucy. It is not. If you took spirit away from me, okay, and I sat with anyone. Mitch seen the miserable git side of me. Mitch has seen the bitchy side of me. Mitch has seen where people get under my tits. But I know that's me. I know that's me. And I know how spirit feels about people. Does that make sense? And I love that because I don't like to feel like that. But I have shit in me where I'm like, oh, that fucking, like I do. You should see me. Like I have, Colin says sometimes I'm the most awful person, because when Lucy's not, like, I'm not always nice, and it's not that I'm not nice to, actually, I'm really nice to people. I'm never impolite to people, rarely ever impolite to people, but in me, does that make sense? That's the mask I wear that night. In me, I'm being totally vulnerable here. I can be not, now people are never going to contact me for a read, but me as Lucy is not very, like, I can, people, like, going to the store, I'll tell you, I'm not like, well, I do say hello to people and I am friendly, but if someone cuts me off, I'm not nice to them, but to Colin, I'm like, did you see that? Like, I'm just like, that fucking woman cut me off. What do they think they own this place? And I think everyone's like that. I really do,
Yeah.
So I'm just being honest with how it is as a human. But what happens is the transference that when we open ourselves up to spirit, it's so, when you go to a counselor, the boundaries are there. Does that make sense? You're not going to call them not during non-working hours. And the boundary should be there. If a counselor says, oh yeah, you could call me during non-working hours and we can hang out and have a coffee, that's getting dangerous. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I look at it the same as with tarot reading. And I look at it as the same as a healer. That it, like Mitch says, it's a service. And I don't mean to be, oh, look at that. I don't mean it to sound cut and dry and nasty, but it is a service, but it's a beautiful service. and it's a sacred service. But when that time is up and spirit has left me, I shed it. And that sounds really awful. But what happens is that person can come back an hour later and I might not even
remember
remember
them,
what
sort of
was
thing.
said. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've had
That
that
sounds
before. Where people,
really, really horrible, but I'm really like that. Or I'll look at them and I recognize them. And so people are scared sometimes. They'll see me at a fair and go, I want a reading with her, but I just had one 3 months ago. I'll guarantee you, I don't remember. And they'll come down and they'll be like, oh, you said this to me and that to me. And that shows me it's spirit because it's not coming from me. It just comes out and it's gone. And it's like I don't remember. I that's just the honesty of the situation. And it's not me being mean. I think it's spirit. Just I can't. It's not my job to carry everyone else's stuff with them. I'm just the open vessel at that moment. And I've practiced. Does that make sense? I've gone to choruses. I've done circles. A lot of people don't know what circles are, but circles are when other people with giftings, we meet together and we practice our giftings on each other on a weekly basis. So
a gathering of minds, isn't it?
yeah. And so we practice different things and then you find out what your gifts are and you start to strengthen those gifts more and more. And so that's been, well, 5 years I've been involved in different circles before I even came out kind of thing, into the public eye. And so there's practicing, but yeah, for me, that's protection. I can't carry everyone's stuff. There's some horrible stuff out there. And I've done some beautiful, beautiful reads of healing. And I can remember bits and bobs of it, but I don't remember the person's face necessarily. I don't remember, I don't know how to explain it, but it's just, and is that awful? I don't think so. I think that's protection. So I stand quite firmly in that spirit, that's just something naturally that shows me that it's not necessarily coming from me. I'm wording it when it comes out. Does that make sense? The feeling comes and I'm wording it and it comes out, but it's just
you're
kind of
holding
is a
space.
flow. Yeah, it's a flow. It's a space. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
You are. Come.
I was going to say,
like,
I get it a lot when I sometimes maybe go to like a local pub, or if I go out and about to the theatre or something. I've had it before. People have said, "Oh, you gave me a really great reading," and I literally don't even remember the person. And I said, "Well, I'm really, really glad that like you got what you needed from the reading, but I don't fucking remember you." And that sounds awful, but it's not my job to remember people. It's like once the service is done, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's for them in spirit to build that relationship. That's how I look at it. That I'm here as a medium to present spirit to them where spirit wants to speak in their lives, but that I'm out of the equation. That's how I look at it after it leaves. It's for them in spirit. And that's where the transference comes, is they don't see it as them in spirit. So like the first time I ever had a real tarot read, it had nothing to do, like the woman was great. And I was like, wow, what a talent you have. And I want to learn tarot. Like after that tarot read, I was like, oh, I got to learn tarot. Right. Because wow, what a medium to use, what a tool to use to speak. But for me, the healing came because I was so dry inside that spirit was like, I'm here, Lucy. And this is what, like, it was showing that woman what spirit knew about me. And that woman, it was just evidence that spirit was really real again in my life when I was going through a massive dry patch. But people get that mixed up. They don't see it's coming from spirit. They just see this person has this real natural talent. And they're like, oh, that's a cool talent. They spoke into my life. They told me everything. And they're not realizing that comes from the universe. That doesn't, and that person's a portal. But then you get readers that are mixed up and it is from me. I am the talented one.
The ego kicks in almost, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's interesting you saying about the like the transference as well, because I don't know if you guys have had it, but I've had quite a lot of people that might be, in very what seems like very happy sort of marriages or whatever else, or men that are supposedly with wives that actually have got a bit of a sexual desire for me, like when I've done them a reading. And I've had quite a few people sort of message me wanting sexual liaisons, and I'm like, no. Like, and it's really uncomfortable because it's almost like, well, hang on a sec, like and it makes you really doubt your self as a person, because you think, oh my God, have I led them on in some way? Have I given them some reason to feel like that? And you haven't, but it's where they're latching onto that empathy because maybe they've never had anybody feel or give them the ability to sort of feel that, I suppose, from wherever it comes from, and it's really weird.
Yeah, let's say you had someone sit in front of you, and I'm this is what I'm assuming these kinds of situations are, Mitch, is that possibly that person has lived a sexual life, a very sexual life, but not a lot of feeling attached. So they might have like, they might be quite promiscuous, but there's no attachment to people. Does that make sense? Or that kind of thing. Or even they have a partner, but there's not that attachment emotionally to that partner where they've really felt seen. Right? And during a read, that's what spirit does, is that person is seen. A good read, that person will be seen and it will resonate because I've had people go, I already know that. Well, good. Because that's what a read should do, is resonate to show you, because I can make up any bullshit and tell you and you go, oh, wow. And it doesn't resonate and there's no evidence there. Resonation is evidence that spirit is alive and well and speaking to you. So that evidence, so they feel seen, Mitch. And then what happens is, that sexual side gets mixed up in there. Right? Because they want to be seen and loved. It's very complex. It's very deep, but it's very messy and it's very real. It happens all the time. That's why you see big spiritual leaders fall from grace, because they're having sex with their
clients,
parishioners and clients and stuff like that, and they're married and they're having these affairs, and that's their ego and transference of the person all getting mixed up and mushy, and that's why boundaries are so important. So if someone is feeling sexual towards you, Mitch, as long as you're not like, you got a real nice willy, I'd like to touch it, or, and you're sitting there saying that to the person and leading them on, which I know you're not. If they have sexual feelings for you, that is actually their issue. It's not yours. But it does come into that confusion. Does that make sense? But then the hard part is the kindness, where you need to be, I'm sorry, I'm married.
I can no longer. Yeah, or I just be like, I'm really sorry, I'm married.
Yeah, and you can even say, I can no longer read for you. I don't feel comfortable reading for you.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I had to do when Colin messaged me after our session.
Oh, shut up! That's why he's so sheepish around you.
No, I'm only teasing. But no,
he said you should have me on. You should have me on. I should be able to stand up for myself. He said last week when I was going on about Colin, he said I should be allowed to be there. You should have me on and interview me so people know. He wasn't mad. He wasn't mad at all. He was laughing about it. Oh, that's so funny. That's so funny.
I'm only teasing.
Oh, poor Colin. Poor Colin. He probably been hit on by more men than women in his life. Like, and like, even when I was like, are you sure you're not? And he's like, I'm positive I'm not. But the men seem to like him.
But no, but on a serious note, it is really, really weird because, and I've had it with not just men, I've had it with women as well, that like they've seen it as a mission because I've made them feel, or spirit have made them feel so good, or the reading has made them feel so good. They then want me as like personal property, and it's like, it's not going to happen, and it's just uncomfortable because you just, I don't know, you sort of just lose all respect for that person as well. It just becomes.
It makes you feel a bit dirty. It can make you feel dirty. As a person that's getting that from the person, yeah.
Yeah, I always think it almost makes you feel a little bit like energetically raped, kind of. And I don't know if
that's what I mean by dirty. Yeah, you feel just a little bit like your boundaries, everything's been infringed on. And I just I've not been hit. Well, I don't get hit on very much, period. But maybe if they did hit on me, I'd have no fucking clue. You know what I'm saying? Like, when it comes to that kind of stuff, I hide behind my humor, so it's just like oblivious to me. It could be banter, and but anyway, But yeah, that's how I look at it. I would feel very, very uncomfortable if that happened to me. You know?
It's just very odd when it does happen. It's just especially when you've worked so hard to sort of really hold space for spirit, listen to what spirit have said, and you might have had something really important, like, I don't know, a lady's mum might have come through and given so much evidential stuff, and then for it to kind of have that sexual twist, it's like, where the hell has that come from? What conversation have I given you for that to have come into it?
Yeah.
It's just confusing as a reader. I find it very confusing when it happens.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like, Carly, you were saying about the love and light and how you, when you first started in the market, and I see that about you, Carly, even now, you're so loving and giving and nice and kind that I think sometimes it's alarming for you when you realize that other people don't have those motives. And
confusing.
it's confusing.
I mean, I know it's out there. Yeah, I mean, I know people don't share the same rose-tinted goggles as me, and I think what I struggle with sometimes is like, I know why, because I'm not stupid, I'm not blinkered. I've seen.
I'm not saying by that you're stupid by any means. I just think you want to see the best, and you try to see the best in every person that's around you.
I do try and see the best of every person, but I'm also very fully aware that not everybody sees the world through rose-tinted goggles as I do. And then you sort of look at them and go, well, why not? But then I also understand that side of things, because then I do the sympathy side of things and go, oh, well, that's because, you've had this, or you've had that, or maybe you've not been, there's things that have happened, trauma. We always talk about trauma. There's things that have happened in their lives that don't necessarily always give them the edge, or it may be families that have been brought up with, I mean, I know some people, I mean, I'm very optimistic. My pint glass is always half full or full up, whereas some people have a pint glass and it's half empty. And you just think, oh God, why do you piss on everything? You don't need to.
It depends on the day for me and how I'm feeling. Sometimes it's half full and sometimes it's half empty.
I'm not. I'm not. I'm not like that all the time. I might come across going da, da, all the time, but I have days when I don't want to people. I don't want to do peoply things. I want to sit and hide in my little hole in the ground or my hole in the corner and go in my workshop and not people, because I don't always want to people. So we always have days that are like that as well. So yeah, it's just the way things are, aren't they? But like, if you're empathic, people do grab on, don't they?
Well, because it's starving. There's loads of unhealed trauma. It's like
a moth to a flame, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I've been the unhealed trauma. I totally get it. I remember being younger, and my youth pastor, he absolutely adored me. Do you know what I'm saying? And he took me at our church, and he nursed my sense of humor. He did loads of stuff for me. But I remember, even as like a 14, 15-year-old, feeling quite like I was in love with him. And I look back and I go, I wasn't. I was in love with how he made me feel. Does that make sense? But it got transferred onto him. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's lovely that you can see that now as well, because it shows the progression of the journey, doesn't it?
Oh, 100%. But like, I've been many times, like, not for a long time, but in my 20s and stuff, it went into my adult years because it was unhealed trauma. And so if a man paid attention to me, it could easily turn into, and made me feel just nice about myself. It easily turned sexual to me. Doesn't mean I acted out on it. I never acted out on it. Rarely ever. No, but in my single days, yeah. Does that make sense? But like, I just want to make it clear. But it's what I was feeling inside, and I think a lot of people feel that inside, and they don't speak about it, and they sit in shame about it. And actually, it's just one of those triggers that's showing you there's something unhealed here.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Have you also found? Yeah, I was going to say, have you ever found that it's gone into like maybe not a sexual space, but just an obsessive space where someone just becomes obsessed with you? I've had that as well quite a lot, and it's
I've
almost like
never had
they
someone
change.
obsessed with me, but I felt that where I'm thinking about them all the time. Does that make sense? In the
Okay,
past, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I want to
because it
make it
almost
clear
makes
that
me like,
I'm on a journey, and this is like in my 20s to mid 30s. I would say that I really struggled with this kind of stuff in teens to 20s to mid 30s, and it was in my mid 30s I started to realize there's a pattern going on here, and this isn't
yeah,
normal. Yeah, and part it's not like I faced that so much, but the healing journey healed that isn't something that's there, if that
yeah.
makes
It took
sense.
away that sort of behavior almost, didn't it? Really,
Yeah,
in a
so
sense.
now I can be in relationship with men like I have Colin, and I absolutely love and adore Colin, and he's my like, you know, and I can have friendships with men and it doesn't go into that space in my mind or in my
Mm.
thought. Like, and it wasn't like I fantasized about them because I'm not a much of a fantasizer. It was more some people are fantasizers, so there's nothing wrong with it. It depends on your makeup and how you're built. But it was more just this feeling of connection. I wanted to be connected. Does that make sense? And I wanted what that basically that energy vampire. I wanted that feeling of how they made me feel.
Yeah, I've had that with clients where they've said they crave my energy because it makes them feel
Yeah.
so good, and for me, that is like a huge alarm bell, and I'm like,
Yeah,
oh God.
that's unhealed, but you do not have to give in to that because it actually would probably be unkind to give in to that for them.
Yeah, I would probably be doing them a disservice if I was to actually entertain that and to go
Yeah.
into a reading space or whatever. So often in those moments I say, no, go and speak to Carly or go and speak to Lucy. I divert people elsewhere
Yeah.
because I'm
Yeah.
not the reader. And those people may go to you guys and have great readings, but maybe not have that obsessive side.
Yeah, and the thing is too if let's say you had massive ego, right? Where you an ego is low self-worth, but boosted
Mm,
up here. So you're not on a platform of I feel confident. Confident. We've talked about this confidence and ego, two separate things, right? So ego comes from a lack, right? So you're putting yourself out there and you feel really good doing your reads and you feel like, oh my goodness, it's coming from me, blah, blah, blah. And then someone comes into that and says, oh, I'm obsessed with you. A person with an ego would keep that person coming because the two are feeding each other in a very
yeah.
toxic way, right?
Mm,
But you, with your people say, oh, Mitch has ego. Well, no, it's confidence. He knows what he's doing. I'm getting more confident in my life
yeah.
because I'm knowing me and knowing who I am and accepting who I am and accepting, and that's confidence. It's not ego. And the two are very different. Ego comes from lack. Ego comes from, and it can look like confidence, but when you test it, you can see very quickly it will fall. It will get hurt. It will be angry. Does that make sense? So, um, yeah, so that person, the two, and that's where you get real bad situations. That's where you see families ripped apart. That's where you see things going really wonky is the the person that's obsessed or the person that's getting that feeding of that reader or healer, and then that person that's working out of ego that's getting their feelings and their stuff's reassured by that person that's obsessed with them, and that's the perfect situation of a perfect storm of no boundaries.
Well, that's when people start taking advantage of each other, isn't it? And then
Yeah.
that's yeah.
And you
then
see,
escalates, doesn't it?
we've talked about that. There are people in the spiritual world that is purely their motives. Or they might have started
100%.
out and that unhealed side of them, so this is sympathy, that unhealed side of them has not been healed, that needs that love and attention and this and that. And so they start out on with good motives, but they realize, oh, women and men are coming to me like crazy, and they're being obsessed with me, and then that unhealed side will poke its head up and say, I need to be fed. And it's so subtle. It's not them, the side going, I need to fed. It just starts to come out that those needs are there and they start acting on them because it feels good. But then it just destroys and takes everything away.
It does. So is a random question. So if we've got somebody listening, I'm gonna sort of take us back to basics now. Because obviously we got lots of people that listen to us from all different walks in their paths, and some are a bit further along than others, and some of them are all experienced, and some of us have got a bit further down, but we don't know where this empathy or how to deal with this empathy. So a simple example of somebody going into a shopping centre or a pub or a normal everyday life, and they walk in and they're they've got no, they don't realize until they start feeling crap and heavy and tired, and somebody walks past who's going yeah, and then they start feeling agitated, so they're going yeah, so they're picking up all this rubbish and stuff. How would you I mean, I've said Teletubby belly. How would you say to someone who's feeling like that to either energetically protect themselves or get rid of that crap once they walk out the shop? How would you help them? Because basics like walking into shop also helps you in spiritual life as well, and if you're doing readings, etc., 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 etc. So how would you guys do it?
Well, for me, I'm lucky because I have Paul, so I would just send him in places. So I don't have to go.
That's cheating.
If you ask Mitch where he's texting from, you're like, "Oh, what are you doing?" He's like, "I'm sitting in the Morrison's parking lot right now in the car, and Paul's doing all the grocery shopping." The energy is just too much for you at times, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah,
fair enough.
I just can't do it. I just can't
don't do it.
No, but I know that not everybody has that luxury. So, but no, I find it has to take me a lot to go into a space. Like tonight, I'm going to see, it's actually like an adult pantomime, and it's inside well, it's a pub, but they've got like a separate function room, and I'm looking forward to the show, but I'm dreading having to go into the pub because it's going to be rowdy, it's going to be busy, and I'm thinking, oh shit, here we go. So tonight I'll be making sure I've got either a crystal of protection on, something that will ground me, so like maybe smoky quartz or tourmaline or tiger's eye. Any of those are great sort of grounding and protection stones. I probably will visualize like a shield in front of me with a mirror on, and the mirror doesn't send anything nasty to anybody. It just is a boundary between me so I can get to my seat and not be affected by anybody else's stuff. So the mirror will send back whatever people are projecting out, because some people are projecting stuff that they shouldn't be, and so the mirror sort of reflects that back to sender almost. So I probably will have to do that. Yeah, it's very kind. Some people
reflection back, it's not nice, but it's kind to them to go, they can see, oh, like they might not realize what's going on. Does that make sense? But Spirit might be showing them, you're doing this at this moment, and that's not really healthy for you.
Definitely, but some people might see that that's quite vicious or quite evil for me to use a shield. I don't see that as evil. I just think, no, it's sending back the energy. Should I be bogged down with someone else's bullshit,
Yeah. For me, grounding has been a lifesaver. It really has. Okay. So I think about my life before I learned how to ground, and I was in a very airy space, and I'm a fire sign. So it would be a lot of reaction with inwards, but not responding. And responding is different. Responding is like healthy and thought out and felt before it was felt and processed before you let it out. I'm still a verbal diarrhea, but most of my stuff's coming from a healed space. Does that make sense? And I'm not fully healed, and I don't think I'll be fully healed to the day I die. There's lots of nigglies in everyone's lives, but I'm in a better space than I was. And I think about it before. I would go into situations like that, and it would be reaction, a lot of holding stuff in, not being able to process it, and feeling overwhelmed, maybe some self-hatred because I would feel angry or bitter or whatever towards someone in the situation that's going on. And I'm not I'm very polite and stuff like that, but I wasn't very good at processing what was going on in me. And again, it was that I'm not allowed to feel my feelings and be honest with my feelings. And now I can feel my feelings and accept my feelings, and they're not always pretty and they're not always right. Doesn't mean I react out of them, but I'm processing them. So grounding and just knowing that I'm meant to be here on this earth, I have the rights to feel the way I feel. It doesn't mean I have the rights to react and respond and do things. Does that make sense? Out of those feelings, but I have that right to feel that feeling in that moment. But my responsibility is to process and deal with that feeling. So that's, for me, grounding. Grounding and knowing who you are and being totally, completely honest and accepting of who you are helps deal with the situations around you. Am I there yet fully? No, by no means. But it's a foundation for me to go back to. So let's say I'm in that shop and I'm feeling really woo woo. Yeah, getting in the car, stepping outside, taking a deep breath of energetic, clean, well, it might not be clean air, but like energetic air. Does that make sense? And grounding.
Yep.
And going, okay, I felt overwhelmed. I'm not going to feel bad for feeling overwhelmed. I'm not going to beat up myself for feeling overwhelmed or negative or anything like that. I'm just going to accept this and care for myself in this moment. And that's having empathy on myself. Holding space for, we hold space for a lot of people's feelings, but first we have to hold space for our own feelings.
Yeah, 100%.
So going into that situation, well, actually, listening, I was just about to say, going into that situation, it's really interesting to listen to, how we all deal with it. So if, if anybody's feeling overwhelmed, like going into shopping or a pub or things like that, actually taking Lucy's. So this is a great example of taking a bit of everybody's. So it's, so you can take Lucy's and feel empathy for yourself, acknowledge your feelings, ground your feet, take that deep breath, imagine your feet in the floor and a bit further and a bit more, maybe not too far, because then we talk about well and truly deeply making root connections and anchoring yourself. So we go past grounding to anchoring, which I think we'll talk on another day. We were going to talk about that, weren't we, at some point, about anchoring and grounding. And then using, like Mitch does, and you're having a barrier or a mirror bounces back. You've got a combination of two there that would really help someone who is, dealing with the outside world that they find overwhelming. I love that. That's really good. I think that's an amazing combination of everybody, or a Teletubby belly, whichever you can visualize. You'll find
for those people that aren't in England, a Teletubby is the equivalent of a Care Bear for people in Canada, America.
Good shout.
Yeah, it's equivalent of a Care Bear, where they shoot the energy from their belly and it surrounds and it's good energy and stuff like that. So just for those out there,
I'm looking at
what
Rainbow
the hell
Bear.
is a Teletubby?
link in the bio to a Teletubby series. You know what a Teletubby is?
But also put a picture of a Teletubby in here.
Yeah,
Mitch, what are you going to say?
I was going to say, but with all of that stuff, it's also about the intention, isn't it? It's the reason and to why you're doing it, and making sure you're doing it for the right intentions, because you can sort of use mirrors in a negative way, if your intention is not pure. But if you know why you're doing it and what the reasoning is, then you're all cool. You're all good. Just to let you guys know, we're nearly on witching hour.
I had an interesting situation at a fair where I was surrounded. Well, I wasn't surrounded. I had someone beside me that was very ego. Okay. Their readings were very ego based, actually way off base. People were leaving quite disappointed, but I felt this energy and I couldn't stand it. And it was actually affecting me in my readings. And I went outside and I texted Mitch and I'm like, oh, this is going on and I'm feeling really shit. And you told me the mirror, I'd never heard of the mirror thing. And you said, just go in your car, sit down, take a deep breath, and ask Spirit to put mirrors all around you, facing outwards. And I did, but I didn't want to do it to be mean to the person. I wanted to do it to protect myself, and protect because I wanted my reads to be the best reads I could do for those people that were coming and sitting in front of me. And it worked massively. So I use it now. And when I was doing those reads, that person, it felt like they were a million miles away. I didn't even notice them there anymore. They could go and do their own reads. Does that make sense? And every read I was doing, even the client would say, it feels like we're in this like bubble. And there's not the hustle and bustle going on around behind us. And it was like that was actually kindness to that person, kindness to me, and kindness to my clients, me doing that. And it was not, there was no, me as Lucy, yes, I was angry at that person, but I know Spirit is gonna, does that make sense? Sort that out. Sort that out. It just protected everything. And so when people came and sat with me, it literally felt like it was just me and that person in this kind of like room, even though it was a big room with loads of people around us. And it was awesome. Yeah. So it does work really well. Really well. And you don't have to keep it up in your mind thinking about it, because that's where I can go, where I'm like working. So if I ask Spirit to do something, it's like this feeling like I have to be responsible to keep working at it. So like imagining mirrors, imagining mirrors, imagining mirrors. Doesn't work that way. If you really put the intention, and I'm learning this in my life, which is another healing thing for me, intention. Intention. So I do a lot of candle magic, right? I love candle magic because it works really well, or writing things down and burning them, or doing different things with them. For me, candle. So a feeling of anything, I pick a color of the candle that I feel drawn to or what works right for me, and I engrave in that candle with a pen, right? So it cuts into the wax of what's going on with me. Because I'm not very good at processing. That is something that I'm working on, but it's a weakness in my, I wouldn't even call it a weakness. I'm just not very good at processing. That's why I'm a verbal diarrhea. Got to get it out. But if I can't get it out, or it's not leaving, candle magic works brilliant for me. So I write it down in the candle, and I go and I use a lot of birthday candles, not the thin ones, but they're like spell candles, I guess you'd call them. And I buy them in bulk. I buy them in bulk. I've got a load behind me, loads. But I carve it out and I put it in there, and it's like a 35-minute burn, and I let it burn right down, and I don't think about it. I just let it go into I actually practice in my body putting all that energy into that candle. And so it's a very good therapy tool for me too. And then I allow it to burn, and just thinking that spirit's got that, and it can leave my body.
Yeah, you've released it. Yeah.
Released.
Completely released. No, that's good. That's good. Oh. Well, guys,
there we go. Lots of helpful hints there.
Definitely.
I think that's a good one, especially before Christmas. People going into their homes with their families and feeling like I got to, just different feelings come up, and it can get very confusing, can't it?
Shopping centres, all that anxiety of other people.
When you come home and you have certain feelings, take a candle and just put them in there and burn, allow and hold that candle and let the feelings flow into that candle, and then burn it.
Definitely. Or if you haven't got a candle,
don't be worried.
I was going to say, if you haven't got a candle, a bit of bog roll is even good, and you can write it on there and then just flush it away. I've done that.
Yeah, I've done that. Not loads, but I've done that a few times. Yeah, with people that are really annoying me or something like that, just to get it out and flush it down the toilet. Yeah.
Yeah, it's another way.
Oh yeah, I like that.
If on a night out in a pub or something, you haven't got a facility for a candle, but you want to shed the energy quick, nip to the loo, boom, 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 off you go. Jobs are good.
Yeah.
Good shout. Yeah. I like that. And
whilst you're
flushing it down the little big deep.
I'm like, Mitch really annoyed me today. There you
always knows the tone.
I just Mitch doesn't ever.
I didn't have a sticky beef. Oh well, that's a lie.
I love it. Along with flushing, make sure you take a big deep breath. That always.
And then wash your hands afterwards, okay? Everyone, wash your hands.
And then wash your hands afterwards. Hygiene.
Well, good stuff, you guys. I think that is a cool episode.
I do.
Yeah,
it's a good one.
Yeah.
We'll probably dip and dabs at it again and again, because it is kind of the base. I kind of look at it as the base that we all kind of work from. Is that major emotion and that tool of empathy? It's an emotion and a tool.
It's a great starting point. There's a great starting point being aware of that for anybody starting on their spiritual path, or we're not starting, but coming back to it, because we've all been there, gone off, come back again. Yeah.
Awesome.
Definitely.
Awesome. I'm just like thinking about everything we said. But anyway, I'm going to say lots of love and light from Lucy.
Take care, guys. Bye for now. From Mitch.
See you next time.
Bye for now.
Bye.
You got your finger on the button.
I do. And we're going to start now. Bye.